TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Zimet, your State Farm Insurance agent in DeKalb. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Zimet and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. Don't forget Kids Eat for Free on Thursday. For delivery or pickup, go to pizzavilla.com or call 815-758-8116. Elder Care Services of DeKalb. Safe, secure, and supported, helping you stay in home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdekalb.org. My Insurance Guy in Sycamore covers Medicare to auto care and everything in between. Stop by at 204 South Main Street in Sycamore. Call 815-899-0950 or online at myinsuranceguy.com. Welcome into TD Ryan Unleashed podcast number 36, Election Decision 2026, segment number 1, as we're talking with Charlie Kim. Charlie Kim is running for the Republican nomination to run against Bill Foster in the 11th US Congressional District. If you're wondering what that is, that's DuPage, Kane, Will, Cook, Lake, McHenry, Boone, and DeKalb counties. The district includes communities such as Aurora, Naperville, Belvedere, Bolingbrook, and Lisle, along with a number of surrounding suburbs and smaller towns. And here to talk about it is Charlie Kim himself. Charlie, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good, TD. I'm glad that I at least got a chance to come back to DeKalb. It's been a while because I graduated back in the heydays of '89, and that's the time when I started realizing that there is a lot of corn in Illinois, and I'm glad that I got to come back after traveling recently. I just finished with the U.S. Department of State in 2023, but I've been away trying to serve our country for a few years. And I'm glad I got the opportunity to come here and speak with you because it's a great opportunity to get some answers for the people that I will be representing in 2026.
Well, once a Husky, always a Husky there, and we're glad to have you back. You must have dipped your toe. You ever dip your toe in the Kishwaukee River? You ever hear that folklore? That if you dip your toe in the Kish, you always come back. If you go away, you always come back. So
I don't know if I've dipped a toe. I think I've actually gone in all the way.
All right, there you go.
I used to have a thing where our friends and so on, and I played some ball out here in Northern Illinois. So I was with football, but it was kind of a scary reality for me, even though I was on a state-ranked team at Downers Grove North during the 80s. I figured how bad it could be when you're actually playing offensive guard and outside linebacker on defense, and you're a starter both ways on a state-ranked team. Next thing I know, I come out here, and we had a Heisman candidate. His name was Marshall. And when you get a Heisman candidate, I found out a lot of people come out of the woodworks that you didn't even know. And I think we were coming in at our line about 6'4", 6'5", weighing about 250, 260. And I was about 225, benching about 250. And I thought, wow, this is going to be tough. Well, I found out hard way when we played Nebraska Cornhuskers that were coming in about 6'6".
They're growing big there, yes.
Yeah, 280, 290. I said, I'm going to die, and I actually did, because when I was watching the game, when I even got on the field, I was looking at the sky more than I was looking at the ground. I said, it's time to change sports. So I ended up playing volleyball and some tennis here. So it's a good memory for me. I had friends. We used to see places in DeKalb, and I had a great experience coming out here, and I still promote the school, and I do have it on my resume.
And how about growing up in Downers Grove? Were you politically active? Were you a school president or doing that stuff then, or were you not involved politically?
I was. You've been doing your research, TD, because the reason is I was a pretty popular kid. It's kind of a unique situation. Just to give you a little gist of my background, I came from South Korea at the age of approximately 5. And I came here during the Vietnamese War in 1972. It wasn't a good experience for me, TD, because why? My name's Charlie. And during the Vietnam War, if you know, they used to call the Viet Congs Charlie, which was the North Vietnamese. And I'm not even North Korean. I was born in South Korea of Seoul, the capital. And when I used to be out there, and maybe you remember, TD, there used to be a game called Red Rover, let Charlie come over.
Oh, yes.
Well, my case was in Woodridge. I was the only Oriental kid from the age of 8 to 12, and they thought I was a Viet Cong. because my name was Charlie and I'm Oriental. So the thing is, it used to be Red Rover, never let VC Charlie come over. So I couldn't find a friend and I could not even get on the bus stop. The principals had to actually escort me to the bus stop because I had so much problem. And I changed to 4 different schools in a year and a half because of that perception of the thing of thinking what someone is when they're really not. And that's one of the reasons I'm running, because I think it's important to let people know America does give opportunities. But again, we have to be a country that understands, and we need to educate our voters again. And that's what a congressional representative is supposed to do. They're supposed to tell what is going on in D.C., for example, with the shutdown. It was mostly about the healthcare issue for $400 billion. There's still $40 billion that's going to be on the line about being discussed. But people don't even know the real reason. The Republican Party had this incident with Biden's administration while president, and there was never a shutdown because they kind of compromised because they wanted the government to continue running. This time, it was more of a political game with the certain things with Chuck Schumer, and I understand he's trying to advocate for his side. But again, the American people suffer. I don't know if you know this, TD, because I was actually a congressional advisor for 5 years from 2004 to 2009, and the co-chair of the Business Economic Council as advisor, won the National Republican Congressional Leadership Award, even though prior to that, 3 years I served with Clinton's administration to help as a negotiation in the U.S. Trade Representative's office. As they say, you could be a Republican or a Democrat, but when you work for America, you work for the president. And we need to understand, when I was overseas just recently from 2018 to 2023 with the U.S. Department of State and finally getting to become ambassador for the Fulbright area with the U.S. Department of State in 2023, I used to promote democracy halfway around the world. I even helped forces, being an honorary captain in the Air Force, with Kosovo, areas of Ukraine, and Germany. And I was promoting how democracy is so great in our country, but we've lost the sense of being a citizen. And that's kind of the difference. And maybe you remember the particular show, one of my favorites, Christmas time. It's a Wonderful Life with the Baileys.
Jimmy Stewart, what, you're like a spider. You sit here, you whip your web.
Right. Susan Spettles, exactly. You got one of those things going. And my whole point is that, remember George Bailey, he hurt his ear and he couldn't join the service because he saved his brother when he fell into the ice going down the sleigh. And his brother ended up saving a whole ship as a naval pilot and winning the Congressional Medal of Honor. Well, George Bailey could not be a soldier, but he participated in many ways, as you probably know through history. The thing is that there used to be steel drives to make ammo. There was rubber drives to help out.
Give your stockings? The ladies were giving their stockings?
Exactly.
Yes.
The women went out into the force and started taking the jobs in manufacturing. What happened to that being a citizen?
Rosie the Riveter. That's right.
This is the thing that we've lost, and that's one of the reasons I think your show's so important, because I've been doing a little homework, watching some of your things, and you contribute locally. You go out trying to help out homeless. You do food banks. This is great, but this is what I think a citizen means. That's what George Bailey did. He made a difference. People tell me sometimes, and even though my particular status, that I didn't serve, a long time in the military, and I went through the way of going with the U.S. Department of State, I still serve the government, and they say, well, thank you for promoting democracy, or thank you for your service in the government. I say, thank you for your money, because without the taxes that our people paying and contributing, we would not have that capability. So we have to start learning to become U.S. citizens, just not as Americans, but citizens that contribute, to care about the country. I stated in a speech over at Grant Hall Museum not too long ago, they asked me the same thing, and I told them, one voice has, not much of a sound, but when you have many voices, it's volume. We need the volume again. We got to represent what we want, and we need to have our congressional members and our public servants at all levels, even local, to tell us what's going on and let the people decide again. I become an agent. It says representative, TD. It does not say that I am actually the person who has full authority. I go out, give you the information as a constituent who's a voter. You tell me what to do. We used to have a saying in security forces, like a special force out there in NATO in certain areas overseas. Ours is not the question why. Ours is a do or die. So the whole point is to literally go out there, do your duty, even if you don't believe it. This is what the people want. If I don't get reelected, so be it. You die with your boots on, but you have honor because you're doing your duty. We don't have that mentality anymore. We need to bring back the George Baileys. We can't let our cities and our country become a Partersville. So that's why I think it's so important what you even do and contribute and help out, because I saw that you're very active in the community. Because if you care about the country, you got to care about the community. Sorry it took a certain time, but that gives you the gist of being able to go off.
Attaboy, Clarence, attaboy. I want to go back to your childhood.
You ring a bell.
A lot of segments of our American population feel they've been held down and continue to be held down. And I noticed that the Asian population tends to excel at school. They kind of turn this inward. And I look at what you've done by going to NIU and then going to Harvard. And, how is that? What were those moments like where you're being escorted on the bus like that and having to switch schools? And yet seemed like you worked harder, Charlie. What made you work harder when that was going on?
What happened is, even though I had that challenge and the students considered me as an outsider, the thing is that you meet people who want to help. And I remember my teacher, Miss Brassington. She was kind of old, actually, to be a grade school teacher, but she was like in her 40s or 50s, but she was a homeroom teacher. I got to a point where I was that kid who couldn't sit at any lunch table. No kids would let me sit at their table. So I used to try to eat at the library or somewhere, and I got in trouble for doing that because you're not supposed to bring food in the library, which I didn't know. But the key point is she told me that you come back to my desk, and she would eat lunch with me at her desk.
Oh.
So I started realizing people do care. The kids started coming around to me too, because especially when they're younger, they're kind of ignorant. And, as like Maslow's theory of development, you have this development stage, and kids usually go on the physical basis, see, touch, hear, feel. And I've learned that because, especially when you're waiting for a pizza as a teenager, like 30 minutes, I can't wait 30 minutes. It's like, geez. But then you get to the area of being intellectual, and it's a mental development, even though that it's light over here in DeKalb, it doesn't mean somewhere like in Beijing, China, it's not dark. So you start understanding a little bit more values of abstract. And then you get to the point of spiritual, where it comes to a point where it's the highest development, as they say, something like Jesus, Mohammed, Buddha, people like areas with the Muslim faith or whatever you believe in. You start realizing there's something more, and we're all human beings. So I started learning that kids will come around and you get that opportunity, but they have to be educated. They have to understand I'm a kid too. And there was a handful of kids who used to accept me. And then I started building off of that. And what really changed things, TD, is I got an opportunity to play football at Downers Grove North, and I made the A team. Now I'm the only Oriental kid that's on a ranked football team in state, and that's a big deal. We even got our free drinks and free food at Fry's and stuff at the local restaurant. There's a place called the Gyro King and stuff. So we used to walk over there sometimes, and it was just at the tip of the school area on Main Street by Downers Grove. But the thing is that you start getting accepted. And I could stand out because I was, like you said, a person who's different. But we're all different in a sense. We just don't understand how the difference is with everybody.
But now, why that work ethic, though? When I was on radio, my favorite question was nature versus nurture. When I talked to a lot of farmers, and a lot of kids became farmers because they lived with their dad and they were working on the farm. But did your father have a work ethic? Your mother and father have a strong work ethic? Is that where you got that from, do you think?
That's part of it. I was raised in Korea with two diplomat grandparents. One was an ambassador, and also the other one, my sponsor grandparent, Kenneth. They are the reason we came to that area of that town of Woodridge, because he lived in Hinsdale, then Darien, over there by 75th Street in Lamont. And what you're saying is very true, because I've always been molded towards that. At the age of 2, I was learning French and English, including Korean. I was wearing a suit by 4. So that ethic that you're saying, they were molding me for the international forum. And I figured I'd go into international business, where a lot of my family members are involved in, or the government, because I had diplomatic grandparents as well. So I had that work ethic. However, I lost a lot of hope because when I came to the United States and all that adversity that we're talking about, the challenges, we lost our money trying to start martial arts studios, 70s, kung fu fighting, Bruce Lee. So we figured, how can you lose with all these movies of Bruce Lee and stuff to start a martial arts studio?
I would have invested.
A lot of kids still walk around today with their gis, as they call it, in their martial art uniform when they're taking martial art classes, karate, judo, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, taekwondo. But the thing is that we ended up failing because the business structure is different. Also, the laws are different. One of the reasons I got involved in law and finance, that's why I ended up going to Harvard in international economics and politics and went to the Harvard Business School, Harvard Law School. And the thing is that I started learning that you can make something of yourself if you believe in yourself. But I lost hope. Why I say that is because we also tried to start a liquor store. We failed at both. And we ended up turning pretty much broke. My mother and father split. And that was bad enough during the 70s. Brady Bunch, Happy Days, Cunninghams, and the Brady family would never stand for that. So it was bad enough being from another country and divorcing. And they don't accept it in Korea neither. So we couldn't go back to Korea. And this is something that you might appreciate. My parents told me, Charlie, my Korean name, Wonsuk, they said, go look at yourself in the mirror. And I thought I had some food on my face at 6 years old. I figured, okay, I go do what they tell me. I go look at myself and I'm like, what are they saying? They said, you're not blonde hair, blue eyes. They said, you are in America. You become an American. And when you get old enough, you can leave or go back to Korea or wherever you want. But while you're here, you become an American. This is something that we have not been supporting. I mean, I'm an immigrant.
Well, I heard someone make it great. It used to be America was referred to as a melting pot, but I heard somebody refer to it as a tossed salad, and I like that because you have a tossed salad. So in other words, you retain your individuality, but yet you're all a group, as opposed to melting down and becoming one. And I think that's a much better way to describe America. What do you think about that?
I agree, and that's why I promoted democracy. However, there's groups now who are trying to dominate and influence. I understand if you want to have Little Tokyo, Little Italy, Koreatown, but the problem is you have that and you actually incorporate yourself into what's existing. Like they say, in Rome, do what the Romans do. It's became a point where people believe that they could change the culture and dominate. That's not any more of a sense of being an immigrant. You're now becoming a colonist. You're colonizing a country. Why I know this is not only my expertise in that area, but you have to remember, Korea has been a country that have been trying to colonize from the Chinese, the Japanese, other countries have been coming because the reason is they wanted that peninsula for strategic purposes. And Koreans were mostly defense people. They never attacked any country, but they have the worry in them because of the Mongolian background. Well, America, our country, has the same values. If you remember the American Revolution, people don't realize the fact that the American Revolution was created during the time when the states that were individual states, if you look at like New York.
Rhode Island, New York, yeah.
Right, Virginia, they had their own presidents at times. They were their own country, their sovereignty. But they say, hey, we're not going to have any individual states of New York, Virginia, Massachusetts. If we don't build an army together to fight off the British who's going to come and take us over. So the point is, we have to defend ourselves. So they created so-called the area of the Declaration of Independence. People don't realize that the reason we have the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution and Bill of Rights, which succeeded all the way to 1791 from 1776, or even before when they were trying to ratify it earlier in 1774, 75. The thing is that we were creating to defend our own independence, to actually have a country that would allow people to come, but to incorporate into the new world. It wasn't about you come and say that this is my section of the world and you guys get out. But these are the reasons that it motivated me to work harder because I saw that opportunity. I turned homeless for a period when we lost all our money. I was living in a green station wagon that looked like the Brady Mobile. So it was terrible, but I learned that life isn't always so grand. So I went from a life that you could say something like from riches to rags. And then it became more reborn when I got the opportunity to play football. I got a chance to meet friends, becoming a very popular kid, and then having opportunity to go to college at Northern Illinois, and then eventually succeeding to work at the courthouses in DuPage.
All right, let me cut you. You do go on, Charlie.
No.
Well, let's talk about 2024 now. You ran in 2024. You lost to James Martyr rather significantly in the 2024 primary. Tell us about that. What did you learn from that? What did you learn from your first time around there?
Well, I only ran for about 7 weeks. Because why that happened is that I didn't even know if I was going to run, but I had certain party members, including congressmen, a couple of actually 2 Congress members who said that you should run because you have a chance to beat Underwood. And they weren't being prejudiced, but they said you have a minority status and you have a great story as an immigrant coming here legally.
I see a quote here where you say you're living the American dream.
Well,
right?
that's why I'm saying it's being reborn, because the whole point is that my mother, she never got a high school education because she was in the Korean War. And I have pictures of us behind a tank and everything, so I got all these facts. And I'm one of the ones also for the American 250 Dream. They want to use me as one of the dreams because of the story, as you see developing here.
Sure.
The thing is that she never got a high school education, but she had to learn English and pass the US citizenship test. And I have a Catholic, but even funnier is that my other godmother, Catholic godmother, but the person who taught my mother English was a Jewish godmother. So you have a Jewish lady teaching a Korean lady to learn English to pass the U.S. citizenship test. But
That's America.
Work. Yeah, and it took 50 years of cleaning apartments she did because she didn't have an education. So where are you going to get a job when you're not the one who, back in those days of the 70s, TD, there used to be a person like Mr. Brady brings home the bacon and someone cooks it, Miss Brady, or in that case, Allison. But the key point is that, Alice, it seemed to be that's how the norm was. My mother didn't have that background, so she had to clean apartments because she was smart enough with common sense that if we kept living in a green station wagon, we're going to freeze and die. But when you clean apartments, no one's occupying nighttime, so you could cook dinner on a stove, you could go to a clean bathroom, you learn how much you appreciate a bathroom, TD, when you can't go to a bathroom and it's a clean place to go. And also, I got a warm place to sleep. And why I'm trying to state this to you is because when I was running in that thing, people told me I should run. I did not know the system. First time I ever ran. I've been a civil servant all this time for about 14 years. And the thing is that they said, you need to run because you got a chance to win. Well, the problem is I didn't know this political game. And when I first started, my favorite Bible parable, in scriptures was Matthew 7:12. Do to others which you would want them to do to you. So I thought people should be friendly. We're in the same party, so we shall. I found out that usually the people who are your opponent in the primary are worse than the people who are in the opposite party of the Democrats. So I'm thinking, oh my God, what is going on with us? We're just divided all over.
Well, now on the flip side, did you help James Martyr when he beat you? Did you help him run against Foster then?
I asked him twice. Well, he was asked, too, if he was going to help me, and he told me straight out that he would not help me, so don't help him. I offered to help him, but the thing is that I guess, you have this competitiveness, and maybe that's why he keeps running, because he's very determined. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, yes, when it came, I became an elected precinct committee member. I'm actually the only elected Republican in this primary against my opponents. My other opponents, even though he's a village president in Elburn.
Is that Mike Pierce you have, and then
no,
Tedora Brown, right, is running against you?
Right, and Walters. Well, Walters is in Elburn because it's only like 5,500, 6,000. They don't consider a mayor, but he's equivalent to a mayor. They call him village president, but he's nonpartisan. So he's elected as a nonpartisan, not as a Republican. Mike Pierce never been involved with a party, and he actually... he lives in 14, but I've defended him because I had the same case in the last round, like you're saying, in 14, that you can run anywhere you want in the state of Illinois because it's US Congressional seat. You don't have to live in the district.
That's a great point. Okay.
Yeah, and then the other thing is Theodore Brown also doesn't live in the district. She's in Palos Park. But my point is, it is congressional district, so you are able to run anywhere you want. You just have to live in the state. However, I'm the only elected and party member. Both Mike Pierce and Brown has never been involved in the party directly. I walked for for Jim Marty, even though he didn't with me, and actually Carolyn, who's here, we walked together because she's in that precinct area of 14 and she lives there in Plainfield, and we passed out a few hundred flyers.
Okay.
I think here.
500.
Yeah, 500. And I even told people, we have to get Underwood out because what she's doing is not always for the sake of the state and also for our community. And for one example, she passed the Black Mambas Act. My question is, why are you favoring black women over all other women? Her point was, it's because they have more complications during birth. My point is, I don't care what race you are. If you have a person in labor and they need help, you got to give them the consideration. They want to do more analysis, then have universities or other places use their own money. Don't use taxpayers' money for this because not everybody's for it. Same thing with illegal aliens. I know I'm an immigrant, but the point is not everybody wants to pay for people's health care as well as their education and their stay in residence, to a point that they're saying, why am I paying for these people who came in illegally and I'm not even supporting it? So we need the people to be able to stand up and be able to be heard. And that's the job of a representative. Congressional representative needs to speak up for the people, not for themselves or what they hear from others. They need to listen to their constituents and realize why the voters are voting the way they do instead of trying to manipulate the system. And that's a problem. And that's why, coming to your last point here, yes, it's very important that we actually run because we need people to stand up and believe, like the George Baileys. But my whole point is that I ran because they said that you have the credentials, as you know, my academic background and my learning in the government. Even there, I've been trained also with the U.S. Department of State. I've been trained with the Naval Postgraduate School. I've been trained from Homeland Security. And it comes to competence. You see my resume. I've been in federal government. I know how to pass laws. I've passed some of the best laws. So I'm not going to be looking for the bathroom when I first get in there, which is kind of hard to find sometimes when you.
No, but we hear a lot of freshman politicians don't know what's going on. They need a year or two to. You'll hit the ground running, is what you're saying. Is that basically?
Not only hit the ground running, I already have the alliance, which goes to the point of my characteristics. Not only do I have a good story of being an immigrant and working in the area of immigration area for 24 years, 25 years, I've been in intelligence also for about 23 years. So the point is, I know what's going on out there. I've been involved in these areas. I've helped our nation in various ways. I've wrote proposals. And the thing is that I can adapt quickly. My background in finance and law also helps me tremendously to be able to adjust with procedure and understanding. And when I hear people say, well, I'm going to be able to bring my experience, like Marta was saying before, same thing as Jeff Walters saying, that they've done this local area. Well, yes, but anyone who knows in the federal government, it's not the same procedure. You have a different area of responsibility. So if you think you're going to be able to take the same procedure, be able to pass laws and have executive power like you do as a mayor and go in Congress, they'll say, thank you for your speech, Representative Kim. Sit back down. We'll see if you're here 2 years later. You don't work that way. That's why I've already made alliance, know the people who are in Congress, who's been helping me and mentoring me. So like you said, TD, as soon as I get in, I can go right off of their platform as well as my platform. As you see, I have 4 things. The economy.
Yeah, I want to get those 4 things, but let's real quickly now, and again, because I don't want to waste too much time here. Sure. This is a survey you took in 2024, and I'm just wondering how much your answers have changed. Now, it says, why are you running? And you emphasize your international relations and law, that you're living the American dream. You're kind of touching this. How has the district been impacted by the migrant crisis, which is continuation going on? And what are your thoughts about that with the ICE agents in Chicago and some of the way they've treated some people? What are your thoughts about that?
I support Trump that he's trying to take action, but what he is doing, I don't know if you could really say that we're being invaded, but it is a national concern because people have been dying. As you probably know, one of the biggest cases that were known is the Laken Riley case in Georgia. That person, 2 years prior, had an offense for assault, then theft, and then he finally got caught after he killed that lady jogging in Georgia. That should have never happened. We have several cases like that. I know another case that's in the area with.
But Charlie, there's also several cases of people getting detained that have no criminal record at all, or minor offenses like traffic violations.
And
this is not America. You know, when I woke up to this, I'm like, this is not the America I know, where we have soldiers on the street covering their faces up, taking people off the street or asking them for their papers. I saw a thing on the news last night. They're asking people for their papers. You know, what is this, Germany in the 30s? It's just like, it's a very scary scenario.
Yes, and that's my other part that I'm stating. I don't agree certain ways that it's being implemented. For example, like you said, I think when ICE agents are in a situation and they're downtown and they're trying to keep barriers and so on, that's okay. But when people are coming across, you don't have to literally push a person down when the lady's 105 pounds and you're 205 pounds. So I think that's wrong. I think we have to approach it where you get it. If she's trying to walk, it doesn't mean you have to grab her and whip her back. You could just grab her hand or actually bear hug her. And this is the reason that I think we need better procedure. Also, it's not right that you go into a grade school and literally drag out someone from the premise to make a media post. This is wrong. And, they have access. They know where the person is. They could wait until even the classes are over. But the point is that we're trying to make it a show. And this is why I don't believe in the way we're doing it. However, I do believe in the policy. Because it's
my wife and I were very relieved that we stemmed the immigration at the border. It was fantastic. It's great. We couldn't do that sooner, but that we didn't know it was going to be taken to this level that it's at now. And it's just that, again, it's a little frightening. Now, like for instance, why covering the face? Is the logic being that they might be recognized later and be attacked? Because I don't understand why the ICE agents have to cover their face. What is that all about?
Well, that's preference. Because I was curious about that too, TD, and saying, COVID's over.
Right.
And and especially it's very fashionable because they wear the black mask.
Yes.
So and they even have like a logo of the government or something, or a U.S. flag off to the side. So I think it's like you said, they don't always want to be recognized because they are in threat. I mean, I've gotten already death threats, even from the last round. People calling me Chinese Communist Party, Chinese military. So it's the point of getting certain education. But you're right. It's more of a sense that they do it personally because it's not required. And they have like face masks already, so you don't need to wear a mask that's for the area of hygienics. And they say that it's hygienics, but that's their preference. But yes, it's more that they're trying to cloak themselves, and I don't think it's something that is required. But what I think they should do, and I don't know if they do this all the time, but my point is they should keep tabs, and even more, they should have numbers even if they want, in the front like an ID, and even in the back like a jersey, so they can see who actually does that or what happens.
Accountability, right? Yes.
Exactly. And I think that's something that's necessary, not just in the area of our so-called Congress. I think it has to be throughout with any law enforcement people, because if you get a law enforcement, like a police officer in DeKalb Police Department, you could see their badge and you get their ID, and they have to disclose that to you. So I think it should be the same thing with ICE agents as well, even if they give something like a number. And it doesn't have to be long, but people could even take a picture of that number. But it gives accountability. So I do agree on certain stances, and what we're doing can be improved. And I think action should be taken immediately because it's not difficult to do it.
That's a great answer, Charlie. And I tell my wife all the time, we have checks and balances in America, and that's what we're looking at. We're seeing the Supreme Court, court reviews what's going on. So it's very important that we abide by those checks and balances, right?
I agree. I studied constitutional law, even starting at Northern, and I took some of the law classes auditing. As a student at large, did very well, got straight A's in it. But the thing is that why I took such a fascination, exactly what you're saying, TD, because I was concerned of my own rights as a citizen. And the thing is that when you have that right, we have to be able to protect it, enforce it. For example, that you're talking about, the Securities Border Act 2023 has laws enforcing it. And Trump, he made the executive order, and it got to a point where it used to be 5,000 more coming across illegally. After 2 months later, it was 500 and under. That's costs that we have to burden, and we can't even track them because they're ghost criminals. So a lot of these cartels are picking them up, like from downtown Chicago, because they speak Hispanic and they have Hispanic culture. So the point is that it is motivating to have more crime. So I agree, but what you're saying specifically, like your wife's experience, we need to have certain accountability. And what I like to say is that when we do this, we have to listen to the people. I had a person who gave a great answer about the things that check and balance system. But yes, we have the judicial branch, we have the legislative of Congress, and we have the executive branch. And we need to keep that balance. That's why I believe our Constitution is one of the best in the world. I preached and advocated halfway around the world in Germany, Kosovo, and Ukraine, saying why, even in Korean areas, why we have such a great system. If it was so bad, we would get rid of it. The problem is, it's not our system that's bad. Our forefathers were brilliant. They gave us the power, or you could say the prerogative, to change things as time goes along to adjust. Problem is,
it's a living document, right?
It's just like any organization. That's why you make an incorporation. That's why you make an organization. It's a legacy. The problem is we have a legacy. It's the management that's killing it. We're not doing what we're supposed to do, so-called as congressional representatives. For example, why is it that Bill Foster tried to sponsor and help out in January of 2025 HR, House Resolution 884, to allow illegal aliens to vote? They're not even U.S. citizens. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican independent. Why should someone who does not have to pay taxes say we could pay more taxes? Why should someone say that someone could get shot in the military or even as a government official going halfway around the world to Germany, Kosovo, and get shot when they could leave tomorrow? They could even be bought by the cartels. This is wrong. And you might say, well, this is a thing that's being considered. These are actual laws that were being considered. That was knocked down, but we have another one, House Resolution 22. The thing is, it's to be able to show your ID. A real ID that we get at the license plate or any federal ID, even a military ID, is valid, or U.S. citizenship papers, a passport, to show at the booth when you vote. Because we've had, I don't know if you ever heard of Judicial Watch, but I know the people and the attorney that was doing it with Mike Bost, Congressman Bost, Christine Severson, they found with Judicial Watch 5 million voters that cannot be verified in 2024. It's amazing that a Republican won when they can't even verify. Who knows? Maybe some of the Republicans were valid.
Why wouldn't that go to court? And
it is in court.
Oh, it is,
but
okay.
The problem is that they can't get it through. Supreme Court was trying to hear it, but the key point is it should have never even happened. So my point is, if you're a U.S. citizen and you have a driver's license with a real ID, which is pretty much standard now because you can't get into a federal building or even get on an airplane if you don't have a real ID, what's the big deal to show it when you're going to vote? And when we have something like this, don't tell me there's problems. Give me an answer. Everybody keeps saying, like Bill Foster, it's a complex issue. Well, that's your job. That's why you're there. And when I hear someone say, one of my biggest frustrations, TD, and probably one of yours as well, they'll say something like, well, it's not in my district. I said, you're paid by every taxpayer, even me when I'm halfway around the world. What do you mean it's not in your district? You have the whole list of every Congress member. You cannot connect me with a Congress member that's supposed to be in my district if it's LaHood and 16, or if it's someone else, like, if it's like Jackson, who's located in District 1 in Cook County. You have that number. I pay you. Your job is to get me to that person, even if I'm not in your district. This is why I said they don't want the responsibility, so they have no accountability, just like you're saying, TD. And that's why I think it's important to emphasize that.
Now, something I found a little disturbing, Charlie, when you were interviewed in 2024, you said, did Joe Biden legitimately win the 2020 presidential election? And you say no. Now, if you really believe that, why are you running for office now? If you don't believe in the system, why are you running? Or how did Joe Biden not win the election? And why hasn't there been proof? Why haven't they, proven that he didn't?
I will answer that in two ways. First, I want to state to you, which will be the statement that you're saying. I was just talking about 5 million votes that could be illegitimate because they couldn't verify it.
But now this is 2024, right? You're talking
Yes,
about? Okay.
2024. And there might be cases you heard what happened in 2020. They were saying that there was hacking that was going on from the Russians in certain areas. North Korea hacks us for Bitcoins in certain systems too. So
But we're
the
talking
point
Democrat
is,
and Republican here. We're
right,
just saying
but
that,
what I'm trying to say is it doesn't seem like our system's perfect.
no,
And
certainly
we
not.
know that. Okay,
There's no such thing as perfect democracy. You know,
Right.
we're as close as we can get. That's
that goes to my second question
okay.
to you. Now it's a question. How are we going to change it? We need people in there who are not scared to not get reelected but do the right thing. I don't care if I don't get another term. What I do care is that I make a difference. You've seen my resume. I
Right, but how are
graduated
you?
top
How are
of
you
my class
instilling
in
to the voters that it's all right to vote because it's a legitimate vote, a legitimate election? Because if you're going to instill doubt in the voters, then they probably won't even vote.
That's why I'm stating, why don't we pass H.R. 22 to have better verification? Why don't we do the mail-in ballots but keep the envelopes? Because you know that when the ballots come in, they do not keep the envelopes, so you don't know who sent it. We don't even know if that ballot's legitimate. Because why? They could literally pull up a list of people who didn't vote, as they said.
So will
They
you bring up
found people who are
specific
dead.
legislation then to further enhance the voting process?
And this is how you actually make a law go through, TD. So I'm going to give you a tip, and hopefully your audience is listening
Yeah,
to
I watch
me.
School of Rock, and you know with the bills on the steps of the Capitol,
waiting
and
for Capitol Hill. Oh, I love that show. Waiting to become a law. But the thing is that why I'm stating this is that, like we said earlier, you need to make the context and understand how it works, and it doesn't work at the local level like this. You have to be able to know something like H.R. 22, what Chip Roy in Texas brought as a legislation. He sponsored it, and there's several co-sponsors of it. And actually, our members here supported LaHood, Boast, and Miller. But all the Democrats don't vote it, and they have more. They have actually 14 out of the 17 seats for Illinois Congress, for U.S. Congress in state of Illinois. So the problem is people need to know the truth, and I'm going to give them the truth here. The truth is we're in a situation where we have a chance to make a change. You need to tell whomever your Congress members are, if you believe not as a Republican, a Democrat, nor an independent, that this is something that should be done because you are a U.S. citizen and you have earned that right. And that's why we need to make sure that it's enforced of your right. Isn't that what the Bill of Rights was about? And the Constitution was set so the government, the U.S. Constitution, was set to be able to defend those rights. The Bill of Rights was the last one that came. But the thing is, it's part also very similar with the Declaration of Independence. So really, I don't think people always learn history the way it should be. The independence was to independent ourselves from the area of possibly a tyrant and areas of having control over a country that we wanted to run our way.
Taxation without representation.
Exactly,
Yes.
the Boston Tea Party and stuff. And this is why the reason that we need to have that representation again. When we went to the U.S. Constitution, which came next, it was to be able to have a government that was going to run properly, the way that to defend that independence. And then the Bill of Rights to make it very specific who can and who can't do something and not to encroach, to make those rights given away because they're inalienable rights as citizens. So it was always about the people. We lost that touch. So this is why I think it's important to bring back that mentality. Let the people have the power. That doesn't mean socialism. It means defend what democracy's about. And we've lost that, TD. And that's why I'm running. And that's why I try to run even though it was late, because I had a challenge, which I won in the last round. 5 cases saying that I was making fake signatures to get on the ballot. Actually, the judge who decided it, and I'm giving a little promotion with a person who was my attorney, Max Solomon, did a great job. He clearly pointed out that you are able to run in a cycle if you come from one district to other, but they even stated that I was running as a different party, but I never ran as Democrat. These things that were going on rumors, and they even had individual, the Daily Herald, the Illinois Reviewer, sometimes all did their individual investigation. I was ignorant. I didn't know, and I saw from cases that if you run as a Republican, for the last 20 years, there hasn't been a Republican that won in 14. It's like, are you stupid? If you're going to go, you want to win it. And this is what's scary. I've met people, TD, that you probably know. They're glad just to win the nomination. Yes, it's nice to win the nomination, but with my background, that's like getting something like a popsicle. I'm like, what the heck am I doing this for? We got to make a difference. And that's why when you give me an opportunity to speak like this, I could tell people some things. And like you said, if we need to make a change, we need to run. We need to make a difference. I get a voice right now, even though haven't became elected. At least I'm getting to people to know. So even if I do not become the nominee or become a congressional member, this is what America's about. Like I told you in the beginning, one voice. Yes, you have some say, but you have no volume. It's the people's voice, everybody together, that makes it known. And that's what we got to do again. We need to make it known.
All right. Well, I don't want to run out of time because I want to get to all four of your platforms. You kind of hit on some anyway, but one thing we haven't talked about is education and parents' rights. You want safe schools, giving resources to teachers, empowering students, and parental rights. And I was watching Linda McMahon on an interview the other day and wanting to dismantle the Department of Education. And I think many of us could argue that they're really not doing a very good job. But where do you stand on that? Again, give us a shorter answer, Charlie, because we're up against the clock here. But
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
McMahon, I think people need to understand a little better with Trump's particular stance, because I was at Speaker Johnson's office, plus our 3 congressional members, and even with some people in Congress about a month ago. And it's not to dismantle per se, it's to give the states back the rights of more and stop the federal funding, because federal funding has been getting out of control, so they're trying to look for cuts. So the idea is to give the states the opportunity to do what they need to do. But one thing, the right answer is not Pritzker lowering the standard score, so actually it looks like we're doing better.
Right.
Because when it goes to the global area, where I think like 22% in math and 33 or 35% as a 10-year-old being able to qualify in their level of education, that's not going to help us, because in the global world, you have people halfway around the world in Korea, China, people in Germany. They're studying 14 hours sometimes to learn 2 languages, plus they're scoring higher, a universal language, which is math. So it's not going to help us. It's going to hurt us. What they're trying to do
I have to mention something when you mention a language. I don't know if you know Veronica Garcia Martinez. She's running for a state congressional seat here against Jeff Kiker. And she teaches bilingual education in Cortland. And I, like many Americans, think, well, why can't they just teach it in English? And she pointed out something great, that over 60% of people in the world speak multiple languages. And now I don't. I failed Spanish in high school. I wish to God I did. But it gives me a whole perspective on, Americans. We don't look at the world picture here. And you speak, I'm guessing, several languages, Charlie.
I speak Korean. I went back for my master's of law at Yonsei
Yeah, you studied in
University.
Korea for a while. Okay.
I did. I learned French and English, but all I remember in French is Frère Jacques, dormez-vous. The thing is that as I learned some Chinese, because in order to learn law or medicine in Korea, the Latin form here in law, it's actually Chinese in Korea. So I know some Chinese as well. And then Spanish, I've learned, especially living in California a period of time over by the area of the naval bases and so on in San Diego. You learn Spanish when you're in certain areas, especially if you're in Southern California.
Sure.
So my point, and then English. And I've learned some other little Albanian, little Russian. But the key point is it's not always learning about the language. It's understanding about the culture and the people. And going to your answer why family rights and certain things is, it used to be parental rights, and Mary Miller was a co-sponsor of it, but that has changed. It was actually under H.R. 5, and it's changed to a time. Now H.R. 5 is actually for government shutdown, because every session, and here's another thing for your audience to understand, is that every 2 years when there's a new congressional session, before it was 118th session, now it's 119th, the law actually states that if a bill does not get passed through or get sponsored again to be continuing resolution, it dies. That's what they mean, that they could kill it by delaying it. So that's why it's important that people
They call it put a brick on it. I learned that term from Jeff Kiker.
Right.
Put a brick on it.
Right,
Right.
yeah, and just let it sit. Exactly, and it'll disappear. We have laws that are back in the area of like 100 years ago that still hasn't came to the floor. That's why being the Rules Committee chair is very important with the Speaker of the House, because those two, the committee and the speaker, decide what's going to be discussed. Well, the thing that we have now, instead of the parental rights, which now all their sense, for example, parents getting the right to see the curriculum and challenge it before something's taught, that used to be under the parents' right. It's now under HR 650, House Resolution 650. Virginia Fox has brought it to the area, and it's being also simultaneously brought up with Senate Bill 204. It's the same bill, and they're trying to pass it, expediting it, but not only does it give the rights of parental rights, even with Title IX, as you know, with transgenders playing male sports, which I don't think is right. Physically, it's impossible. Playing college ball, it's pretty obvious, shouldn't be happening. And if they want to play, then they should pick certain sports that they can, but they need to live in certain physical sports, even volleyball. It is way. I used to play volleyball in college.
Well, that woman in California got injured by the.
Oh yeah, because they call them six-pack, and man, if it hits you in the nose and it's going that fast, 50, 60 miles, it's going to break your nose, especially a female. And I'd rather have females keep looking good instead of them wearing, these kind of nose protectors and stuff. But the thing is that now we need to support that, and one thing that's different on it is that it has the religious rights too. So if there's some kind of religion that's being taught, the parents have the right to know, and they should decide. So we need to give the rights back to the parents, because ultimately the parents are the responsibility for the child. So the thing is that teachers, I know faculty, I think give them the resources, support them, but you need and empower them to teach, but you cannot give them no authority to teach the kids the way they want, because it's the parents who actually provide the resources, and they decide how their child should grow. So we need to give, like PTAs again. What happened to those? Those were great places.
Well, we're quickly out of time. I want you to mention now, I think we covered immigration, parental rights. Now, healthcare, that's a whole nother discussion that we could have about that. But what is your little elevator speech? If I met you in the elevator and I am Charlie Kim, I'm running for US Congress in the 11th District, what would you lay on me there while the elevator's going down?
Like within 1 minute, I would tell you that I came from South Korea, from a very wealthy family, had privileges, knew democracy is a great thing, because after the Korean War, we pretty much incorporated everything with the U.S., and that's why they became so-called one of the four dragons or economic miracles in East Asia, with Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and South Korea. And the thing is that opportunity's there, but we need to have the opportunity. We're losing the opportunity because not so much our system, it's because our leadership. Our leadership is becoming more as an aristocracy, and it's like the great Roman Empire. The Roman Empire ended up falling because of the same thought that we're first citizens. And if you keep believing we're first citizens, the thing is that we aren't. You need to find out the reality. Do your own research. Just like if you study the Bible, don't listen to evangelists that has these talks at night and say, bring me money, and they're speaking in a church that's 3-size football field.
If they get in their jet to leave, yes.
Exactly, $100 million a year. So the point is, do your own research. If you don't know, then ask people that may know, but even if you do, ask your Congress members. If they're not speaking to you, that should be a big red flag right there. And if you want to make a change, get involved. Become a citizen like George Bailey. Go out there and do what you got to do to be able to help. I don't care if it's knocking on doors, getting signatures for a candidate, going to an event that the candidate is and really finding out who that candidate. If they don't speak to you, you already got your answer. If they're not speaking to you now, they're not going to speak to you later.
That's a good point.
So the main point that I finish out with you before we get to the bottom level and out the door, freedom is not free. It's earned. And that's what I learned. Our country gives us still the opportunity. You could wait 3 hours in Russia and vote against Vladimir Putin. He's still becoming the president. We actually have a change. We don't have a perfect system, but we have a change and we have a voice. But one voice can't always do it. It could start something, but it's voices that's going to make the difference. And that's where volume comes.
All right, very good. And we have to tease you a little at the end here because I saw at the end of your bio you're a foodie of different cultures. Tell us about that. Are you a cook, a chef? My wife is obsessed with the Food Channel. She watches the Food Channel all the time.
I grill once in a while. My mother's a gourmet chef, so I learned how to cook certain things, but I can't cook like her, but she's a terrible baker. So she can't make any kind of desserts pretty much. But if you ask her to make beef, ham, you name any kind of entree, boy, it's great being home again after leaving for 15 years, working with the government and being away with school and stuff in the East Coast. The thing is that I do love foods. I try one of the most weirdest food I had at a diplomatic forum was sheep brain, which I didn't even know that they had it. I thought it was pate, like liverwurst, and I didn't even like that too much. And I asked them, I said, this is a little different and stuff. What is it? And they said, it's sheep. And I said, sheep? I thought like lamb. And I said, I like lamb. This doesn't taste. They said, no, the head. And I said, oh boy, well, that'll be my last bite of that thing. But the thing is that you start learning and you start appreciating how people don't waste things, especially when I was homeless. I learned food is very valuable, and I still eat everything on my plate. So I love to eat things, try new things. And then the other thing you have there, one of the things a lot of people don't know, and your audience might get a kick out of this, especially being in DeKalb, I have a pet pig.
Oh, I was just going to, that was my thunder there. You stole my thunder there at the end. You were talking about food here, and then you talk about the pet pig.
Well, what do you think about the pet pig? It's a mini pig, but have you ever had a pig?
No, I've seen them, but I've not.
Smartest animal I've ever known. And my pig, and if people come out to my event or something, just ask me about it. I will show you a video I took. My pig, I tell him to go do your job. And my mother, she's in her 80s, so she doesn't always remember, and she has broken English. She calls everybody honey, so I call the pig honey. It's a male. But the thing is that I figured it could be, unisex name. So I call it honey, and I say, honey, go do your job. Honey will go to the bathroom. Inside a real bathroom, we put it. We put like an area for him to go to the bathroom. He goes in and closes the door after he goes in. And then he wants his privacy. He goes to the bathroom. I taught it to go to a bathroom in like a bowl. So this way it doesn't pee everywhere. So it knows how to do that. After it finishes, it actually opens the door, come out, and it wags its tail. And I say, good job, honey. So
probably more information than we needed there, Charlie.
But I'm just saying, smartest animal I've ever seen. He knows how to kiss, handshake. I mean, it's amazing.
His name is Charlie Kim. He is running for, again, the U.S. Congress seat for the 11th District. We can find out more about you just at charliekim.com, right, Charlie? How do we find out more about you?
You could look up on the website. It's www.charlieincongress.us, like United States. But if you want to just Google it, or you could say just go on the World Wide Web, if you put Charlie Kim Congress, I will be the first one come up, or at least the second. One of the reasons is I am the only Oriental person running for Congress right now in the state of Illinois. And if we get in, I will be the first U.S. immigrant from Orients to ever be elected in U.S. Congress. There has never been one.
All right, wow. So breaking some glass ceilings. That's great. Well, we appreciate your time this morning, and we hope to have you back. Again, if you win the primary, we'd love to have you back and talk about the election.
Here. My job is to inform the people, and I'll have more information. And if you have any people who have specific requests that I should learn something, or even to elaborate upon some of the things I spoke to educate me, as my grandfather told me, you can't know everything. Something changes every day, and you can't have everything because there's no limit to a human being wanting more. So when you think you have everything and you know everything, you're nothing. So I believe in that. So if you got advice from me, if you have more information or someone else has a question, tell me. I'll study up on it. I'll bring the answer. That's my job as a representative.
All right. That's Charlie Kim again. And that's TD Ryan Unleashed, podcast number 36, Election 2026, Chapter 1.